how to refinance, how to buy a home by using your current home. We're going to be talking about all those things. But first, I want to introduce my great guest. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
He's a friend of mine. He's a colleague. We've known each other for years now. He's a mortgage broker. I've been watching you for a while doing your thing, bro, growing in the business. Very experienced.
Yes.
Been doing it for how long now?
Honestly, it's like 17 years now.
17 years in the game. His name is Jason John. Thanks for coming. He's a mortgage broker. Thanks for coming, homie.
All right.
Good to see you.
Respect. Man, honestly, this is the thing about going live. It's like very...
you got to work with what
you can't rewind, no
it is
pause,
what it is.
no nothing, right?
Live TV, my man. You got to keep...
Right. Well,
the show must go on.
All right. So I'll just do a little introduction.
Yes,
right?
please.
You did a nice one.
Yeah, I want you to introduce yourself. Go ahead.
So my name is Jason Allen John. I'm a mortgage agent. Actually, mortgage broker now. Yep. I've been in the industry for 17 years, done everything from like commercial banking to residential to working with people on development. So come with a wealth of experience. And, I don't want to get down on my like profile. We could talk about actual stuff that are going to help people. Right. But overall, the neat thing is, me and you share something in common. We're new fathers, right?
How's that going? So funny enough, guys, we're going to get into it. I know we're starting late. And again, I appreciate your patience. Thank you so much. But I want to just kind of give some backstory. Funny enough, I just had a son about a year ago now, actually back in March. And literally 2 weeks later, he has a son. So we're going through a lot of the same no sleep. No. Sleep doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Work is like second, third, fourth, fifth down as a kid. And we went through the whole nine, right? The whole crawling stage and all that stuff.
He's kind of like, my guy's just like, grabbing onto things and doing that kind of stuff right now.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the time he's going to start running around, though.
So that's when it gets real. Apparently, we're new fathers, so we really don't know. We're
maybe
just somebody. You guys let us know if it gets real or not. From what we know, it does get real because right now my guy's trying, like he's standing, he'll do this, and then he'll put his hand on something. Yeah. But once he realizes that he's actually standing by himself, that's when he'll put his hand down. So it's very interesting.
Okay, we haven't done that yet, but he's climbing on everything, grabbing like everything from like if I'm on the computer, you ever try to work with him?
No, it's impossible. Right. No, it's impossible. He's gonna try to do his own thing. So it is what it is. Anyways, let's get right into it. As promised, I really, really, really wanted to kind of walk through the whole process of refinancing, taking money out of your current home to buy more real estate, to buy investment properties. Now we're going to talk about why we would do investment properties or real estate as opposed to, taking that money and going to Niagara Falls and just say, hey, let me just put it on Russian roulette or let me go to the poker table or go on vacation. We really do think that the best way to take that money, if you're going to be pulling equity, is to be investing. And we like real estate as a vehicle.
Yeah, real estate makes the most sense. It provides cash flow. Right. And right now, everyone's talking about inflation. Right. So one way to combat inflation is to bring more income in. Right. And the best way to do that is
real estate.
Yeah.
100%. And the other thing about real estate that I love, so you have your stocks, you have your bonds, you have crypto, all that stuff. I mean, hey, I can't speak for that. I can only speak for what I know, which I've been doing for 10 years now, which is real estate. The one thing that real estate has over most is leverage. That is the key thing. You can buy you can go and look at $1 million property, say, hey, I want this property, put only 20% down. So only put $200,000 down on $1 million property and have somebody else, i.e. bank, private lender, whoever, pay the rest, the $800,000 for this property that you now own completely, which is amazing. So, I mean, leverage is one of the big reasons why I absolutely love real estate. And then obviously as well, you can take that same property, rent it out and have somebody else pay your mortgage, which is amazing. Pay the loan off.
Because it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, exactly.
I remember years ago, I met with one of my, another colleague of mine in the real estate game. And he's like, do you know how to retire tax-free? And I'm like, hi, how? He's like, have 10 properties, refinance them all. And he's like, move away and then let the cash flow take care of the mortgage payments. So, what we try to do a lot is make sure that strategy's in place for a lot of clients, right? Especially in the time right now where real estate prices have like accelerated over the past 18 months.
It's insane. It's insane.
You know more than me. I get the appraisals.
We're gonna get right into it. I don't want to waste anybody's time. We're gonna get right into it because we're gonna use an example and kind of walk through the whole process. If you're good with that,
let's do it.
Perfect. So first things first, let's discuss why use a mortgage broker. What does a mortgage broker do? So like obviously you have the bank. So I don't mean to interrupt, but you can go to a bank. Of course, you go to one of the 5 major banks, pick the color, and you can go there, walk in and say, hey, I want a mortgage. You could do that, or you can go to a mortgage broker. So please just explain why would one go to a mortgage broker over just walking into your bank and working with them?
Well, typically, and I came from the banking world, so I love the banking world too. But typically, a mortgage broker has access to more lenders.
Right.
And on top of it, we're more in the planning stage of your mortgage and want to make sure we look for your future, right? Because the thing about financing, it's not about this property you're doing, it's how you're going to finance the next one.
Right.
And that's what's more important than your current state, right? It's kind of like, what are you going to do in the future? So when you're buying your first home or your second home or potentially third, fourth, or fifth, you got to think about how you're going to buy that next home.
Right.
And that's what I think a broker, the advantage we have over going directly to the banks, because we'll give you a suite of options that you can choose from that makes the most sense for you, right? Because everyone's situation is different.
Right. And the bank it's funny because the bank is not going to, you're not going to walk in the bank. The bank's not going to say, hey, you know what? Our competitor is giving X price.
No.
our competitor is going to give you this interest rate. Our competitor is going to give you these terms. No, the bank's not going to do that. They're only going to be speaking about what they can provide.
Exactly.
Whereas a mortgage broker, they can literally give you a slew of options, tons, variety. You can have, depending on your situation, you can pick through so many different lenders that you guys have.
Yeah, and then you can go private. Right. You can do construction financing. Right. You can do a multitude of things that fits your scenario. So some people, they buy houses a lot of times right now that need a lot of work in them.
Right.
And banks may not approve it. Right. We have solutions for that. And it doesn't mean we work with the banks a lot. Like one of the top lenders I work with is Scotiabank.
Right.
I do a lot of mortgages with Scotiabank because they have a product that you have like a mortgage and line of credit. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But they allow you to go in and out of your equity as you please, right?
Right.
And a lot of customers, they need that fallback because, as you know, right now, you may not find that house right away. Right. But what's important is that you have access to the capital when that comes available.
Ready to go.
Perfect. And that's what the key in, when we're talking to people about taking out equity, because a lot of people don't want to do it until they have that house.
Right.
And what I say, you know how hard it is to do the refinance, the purchase, all at once? It's difficult. So it's about being prepared, right?
100%. And having somebody like yourself that knows exactly how to navigate
the little waters, because it gets a little treacherous sometimes.
So let's talk about it. So I'm going to give an example. I have a bunch of clients that are in this exact situation right now. Okay. This is the reason why I really want to do this webinar, to kind of get everybody all at one time to get the information. Please, if you have any questions at all, type them into comments. You can also subscribe. I'd love for you to subscribe as well, so you can be, on point with what's going on. All the webinars and videos. I put a lot of tips, a lot of stuff out there. So please subscribe right now. Click it. Anyway,
click that button wherever it is.
Yes, wherever it is. I'm doing this. I have no idea where it is. It's probably not even here. It could be anywhere. But yes, wherever it says subscribe. So let's go through a real life situation.
Let's do it.
Client bought, a property for $600,000 a few years ago.
Okay.
Now we're looking at this. In present day, it's worth like just over, let's say $1 million. Just the number. It's actually probably worth more right now in this market, but let's say $1 million. I kind of want you to walk through the whole process. If we're kind of looking at us, they call me and they say, what is my house worth? I kind of give them an idea, but obviously we still have to do an appraisal. We have to do a lot of things. So kind of just give me an idea of what the process is like.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Let's go through that. So the way I usually, you get the call.
Yes.
And I'm calling the client. You'll tell me a little bit of information, but what I love to do is act like you told me basically nothing.
So you're not listening to me. No, you're not listening to me is what you're saying. No, that's fine. That's good. That's good. Go on.
Well, that's the truth. But anyways, I just say, Tristan, give me the number. Right. So anyways, when I get the number, we'll call the individual and we'll see what their status is. So if you say they bought for $600,000, let's just say they put 10% down at that time.
Right.
So they put $60,000 down. Let's just say it's been like 4 years. So now let's say their mortgage balance is like $520, right? And the house is worth $1 million. Yep. So a lot of it's going to be like, congratulations on that amazing purchase that Tristan put you in. He must have been very smart. I don't know.
Must have been?
Yeah, but maybe. Yeah. I don't know. So what we would do is we would say, I would usually ask what they think their house is worth. And then, you told them the information about $1 million. So we work with that number. The max that you can take out of a house is 80%.
Okay.
So based on that, that's 800,000. So if they had a balance of, let's just say 500 at the time,
right,
that's 300,000 they may have access to. Now, I have to make sure they can get approved for it,
right,
but that's like a possibility of what the equity that they can tap into.
Okay. So
through traditional sources.
So let's pause there. So I come to you, or they come to you to say, hey, talk to my agent or talk to Tristan. He said that my house is worth $1 million. Are you now getting an appraisal on this property
No, we're first going to make sure we get the approval
Purview
first.
Or something like that?
Well, we can do we have a system called Purview,
right,
which kind of says an estimate of what it's worth. To be honest with you, your expertise is way better than Purview.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Glad
to hear that.
That's okay.
I'm still employable. This is good.
Yeah, you know why? Because they say that AI is going to replace real estate agents. I'm not sure how.
Oh, wow. Fair enough.
But Purview tells me an estimate, but usually it's a lot lower.
Right.
But to be honest with you, Purview is very close to what appraisers will appraise refinances.
Gotcha.
And the trick is to be honest with you, a lot of the times if you do a refinance with not your same bank, you'll get a higher appraisal.
Right. They want your
and
business.
The reason is because your existing financial institution, they don't want you in some cases to rack up huge amounts of debt.
I understand.
And that's the great thing about working with a broker. We can kind of shop you around to different lenders.
Right.
And ask them if they're interested in working with your deal.
Okay.
And then when you go to a new lender, they want your business so bad.
Right.
I've seen the appraisals actually come in a little bit higher when you switch banks.
Just to get the business.
Well, it might. I don't know.
It might be the situation.
I don't know why.
No,
It's a trend that I see that could be true.
Right.
That could be false. That's what I noticed. So a lot of the times, what I'll do is I'll say, okay, if your property is worth, let's just say $1 million. We go through what the payments would be like if they took out 300,000.
Right.
Now, there's two ways they could take out that money. They could take it out as a line of credit, or they could take it out as a mortgage.
Very happy that you mentioned that because I want to know the differences. So obviously, as you said, they can refinance or they can do a line of credit. What are the benefits of doing either or?
See, the line of credit's the best thing about it is you only pay interest when you need it.
When you take it out.
Yeah. Gotcha. So say, for example, we gave that client, let's give her a name. Julie. What's up, Julie? So Julie's refinancing her house, and Julie could get access to 300,000, but you haven't found her a place yet.
Right.
The downside is once you pull that money out, the interest rate is usually higher than a mortgage, and it's not amortized down. So that means that you're not paying principal payments. You're usually paying only interest only.
Right.
The other downside of the line of credit, when Julie wants to buy her third house, that line of credit, the payment's much higher. Right. We actually have to calculate it based on that nasty qualifying rate everyone talks about, that 5.25%. So that's where the risk comes for Julie if she only takes it as a line of credit. Right. Now, having said that, the downfall is for Julie if she doesn't find a purchase right away, she has access to that money if it's a mortgage and she's paying interest all this time, right?
Right.
So it all depends on where Julie's at.
So let's say Julie, let's just for the example, let's say Julie has a place that she's interested in. She has
Julie needs to take it as a mortgage.
Take it as a mortgage because it'll be cheaper for her.
It'll be cheaper for her in the long run, and that mortgage can be directly related to that purchase, so she can write off that portion on her taxes.
So guys, it really depends on your situation. It really depends on whether you have a project or if you have, I say project because let's say you wanted to buy a new construction condo or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you have something in mind that's ready to go, then as he's saying, do the refinance, it's actually be cheaper. But if it's a situation where we're still kind of shopping around, we're not quite sure what you want to get into as your investment property, then the line of credit may be beneficial to you.
It all depends on the next steps.
Right.
Next turn.
Right, exactly. So it's obviously you have to have somebody like him that's on your team that's going to look at your situation and evaluate it as a whole. So let's kind of look at what it will take to qualify. So what would they need? What would the application look like for Julie?
So what I would do is let's just say Julie's let's say a nurse. Julie's a nurse.
I had a feeling you're going to say that. I don't know
why. It was on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
Talk about babies, hospital.
It's all connected. It's all.
Anyway, so let's just say Julie's a nurse.
Yes.
Husband works for TTC.
Sure.
There we go.
Yes.
All right. Good jobs, right?
Yeah, I would
All
say
right.
so.
So what I would ask them for is a current job letter,
Okay.
their last 2 pay stubs.
Right.
Now we're in that mix where people don't have their T4s. They may not have their T4s. So I may ask for your last pay stub from December.
Sure.
Then I'll get your mortgage statement and your property taxes.
Okay.
And we're kind of good to go.
What about credit?
I'm going to pull their credit. So what I would typically what I do is I'll ask people how their credit is. Because I don't really want to waste time and pull people's credit. Everybody kind of knows.
They know. They got it.
You know your number.
Even if you don't know the number, you still know your number. Something is not all there.
Yeah.
So if you feel like my credit's not the best because you didn't pay your Rogers phone bill or your Telus phone bill for whatever reason, it's delinquent.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Listen, honestly, credit scores, as long as you maintain it over about 600, and most people want to get like an 800 score.
What should the number be?
Anything over 600 is reasonable. Anything under, you're more looking like you might have to go to a B lender.
What would be ideal? Like 6?
Ideal would be 650,
like a 680.
I would say 700 is the most ideal. But to be honest with you, the banks care less about your credit score and more about your income.
Gotcha.
You know, we can get around blemishes in the past.
Right.
Everyone's had a Rogers bill they didn't pay. Everybody has, something that is
just 1 second. When you're trying to screw Rogers, just think about it. You're actually screwing yourself. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Yeah. Pay the phone. The phone bill does show up. So
and it's usually the phone bill that's
it's always a phone bill. Always, for whatever reason, the phone bill. So please pay the phone bill. You think like, yo, I'm not paying Rogers, I'm paying Telus. You're the one that's affected by that.
Bites you.
It's gonna bite you. So please, I just want to make sure that's clear.
I know, because it's always that small thing, and that's the thing. It's like you think about it, you're like, oh my god, it's a $200 phone bill.
Right.
Who cares about it? But then it affects everything.
It does.
Right?
It does.
So we do check the credit, but most people, like, to be honest with you, if you have equity and you could afford the monthly payments, we're getting this refinance done.
Got you.
Now, typically, what most people are doing right now is they're saying, Tristan, I want to turn my house into a rental property and I want to move to a new home, right? So that's when it gets a little bit tricky too, because we have to balance that approach about how much are they going to rent a property for. Right. So we want to make sure it cash flows and then all that. In that typical scenario, I tell people to take as max possible out of that property. Okay. Because when you turn a property from primary residence to a rental, you want the most mortgage possible because you want to write off the most interest. But on your house, you want the least amount of debt. Makes sense. On that new house. So a lot of times people are coming to me and they're like, refinance so Tristan can go find me a $2 million home. Right. Fair enough. Right?
Hey, man. So let me ask you something. You mentioned, so we have Julie. Julie is a nurse. Julie and her husband works for the TTC. What if it's a situation where they're self-employed? I have some people here that are self-employed that don't necessarily have your typical job, I guess, but they're making money. What does that situation look like for them?
So I'm going to say something a little bit controversial, right?
Let's hear it.
Self-employed individuals.
Controversy. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Self-employed individuals, my friends, who we pay a little bit less taxes than our employee people.
Please, let's hear it.
The interest rates might have to be a little higher. We may have to go to a B lender.
Right.
There are solutions for everybody.
Right.
But you have to be prepared to pay a little bit.
And why is that? Why is that?
Because if you think about it, like most self-employed individuals, and I hate to blanket statement, but it's because we get our taxes done. Like I'm self-employed, you're self-employed. Yes. We get our taxes done by an accountant. Yes. What's an accountant's job?
To try to pay as minimum as possible in taxes.
Okay. Yes. And then what, as a banker, getting a mortgage, what do I want to see?
We want to see that you're claiming a lot more. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. So this is where the disconnect is, because your accountant's trying to save you taxes, but I need you to show more income.
Right.
But remember, you don't want to show all that income forever, right? But you just want to qualify for your mortgage. Right. So in some cases with B lenders, they're not bad. Like the pricing is really good, but it might make it a little bit easier for you to qualify with a B lender. So self-employed individuals, it doesn't mean you can't get a mortgage. You may have to put a little bit more down, or you may even have to visit the cosigner option, right, which is not a bad thing.
Right. And just to touch on that, because you mentioned with the B lenders, people have this mindset that if I'm not with a major bank, if I'm not with one of the 5 banks, that, buddy, that's it. There's no way I could get a mortgage if it's not with the bank. I don't want to go with no B. B lenders are fine. There's actually some A lenders that are out there that are not one of your major banks that you can go with as well. Like it doesn't have to be with one of the 5. You can go with other lenders that are going to give you better terms potentially. Might even be better interest rates. It just depends on the situation.
It's true. It's
B
so true.
lenders are not the end of the world. If you're self-employed and you can't go with, with your one of your A lenders or one of your major banks, and you have to go B lenders for your term, and given the situation, still like,
don't be discouraged.
no, it's not a big deal at all. Go ahead with it.
Because
Right?
it's, you know what? The problem is we're all brand associated, right? So when you hear B lender, when I say to someone, you're going to go to Home Trust, there's like, what's a Home Trust?
Yes.
Because you've never heard of it.
No, and you don't have the brick and mortar. You don't have the
you don't have someone you could go yell at. But when's the last time you walked into a branch?
Dude, I can't.
The person you yell at is on the 1-800 number.
You're right.
And what's the difference between the Home Trust 1-800 number and TD's 1-800 number?
They give you good terms, not even always on interest rates. That's one of the other things I want to kind of like debunk. Everybody wants to focus on interest rates. It's not all about interest rates. It's about the terms. You can have a great interest rate, but if you want to break that mortgage because you're with that lender, they can destroy you. Right? So I mean, look at the terms as well. That's a big thing.
It's funny that you say that. I'm dealing with a situation right now.
Tell
my
me,
client
please.
has a $29,000 penalty, and then we were thinking
$20,000,
29, 30.
Holy.
So and at the time it was a really good rate.
Right.
You know, she thought she was going to live at the property a lot longer.
Right.
But I don't know if you notice it. Every 3 years, people knock on my door or call me and say, "Hey, I want to move."
Yep.
Right. So variable has been winning over the last for a while, right?
Now, I'm glad you even brought that up. Which one would you, because obviously you have variable rates and you have fixed rates. When you're doing refinance to buy like an investment property, which one would you prefer for them to go?
So I have this strategy I call.
Sure.
Take variable but pay fixed.
Explain that.
Okay, so what I mean by that is that you take the variable rate, but you pay as if it's fixed. So let's just say right now the client's buying a rental property. Their variable rate's going to be prime minus 0.55. So right now prime is 2.45. So that's 1.9%, let's just say.
Okay.
Right? But let's just say a fixed rate is 3%. What you do is you calculate your mortgage payment as if it's 3%, and that's what you pay every month.
Right.
But you take variable rate from the bank, and the reason why you do that, so when rates go up, you don't feel it.
You're not getting hit.
But if rates don't go, like everyone's talking about 5, 7 raises, let's just say they don't get to 7 raises.
Right.
And then you took that fixed rate, and you're sitting there like, man, why did I take that fixed rate?
Right.
Now, what hurts people is just like, I'm going to take 1.9, and that's all I can afford.
Right.
Now that's screwed. So that's what I mean. If you're already walking into that, I'm paying a little bit more. A little bit more goes to your principal. You're fine.
Makes sense.
And that's what you want to see if you're going to take the variable rate. Because right now we're in a increasing interest rate environment. Everyone knows it. It's public information. It's all in the news. We're experiencing inflation. So if rates are going up, you have to be prepared. One of my lessons that I remember at the bank, and I have to say this because a lot of the times people don't notice, but I think it had to have been 2010, 11, rates were going up.
Right.
So people who had the variable rate mortgage, banks were sending them letters and saying, you have to pay like $5,000 to catch up to your mortgage payment.
$5,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they weren't, because they weren't anticipating the rate raise. And the banks don't raise your rates until they review your mortgage, which is usually like once a year.
Right.
So if rates go up 5 times this year, guys, like they're saying in the news, like if you're on a variable rate mortgage, you better start paying up, or you're going to get a nasty letter in the mail that's going to say either you're going to have to increase your payment by $500-$600,
which is insane. That's
or you have to pay a lump sum. And remember, it's hard to catch up.
Right.
Like once you fall behind, like you ever have a client or been in a situation where somebody falls behind on their tax payments?
Right.
It's like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 out of nowhere.
Chunk.
How are you going to come up with that, right?
Especially if you're not necessarily check to check, but if you're in a situation where you budgeting, you're not necessarily expecting an $8,000 bill.
So right now, everybody, if you're on a variable rate mortgage, I would encourage you to try to calculate your mortgage payment based on like 2.89, 2.99. So as rates do go up, you shield yourself because it's going to happen and you don't want to get caught flat-footed.
Right. Perfect. So I know we have some questions. Do we have questions coming in or what? Give me some.
Definitely do.
Yeah. We're going to continue, but I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple if we can.
So with prices being so damn high right now, do you think it's still worth it to purchase a home?
Is it still? Yes. It's so funny. Everything is so interesting. I've been in this business for 10 years now. I remember when I first started, 5 years in, prices were insane. People are like, oh my gosh, these prices are crazy high. Oh my, there's no way that they can continue. The market's gonna just crash. And we have bumps and we have ups and downs. Not to say that real estate doesn't go up, and it goes up and down in an upwards motion. So you're going to have situations where you're going to have down years and up years, but for the most part, it's going up. So yes, right now is still a good time to buy. I don't anticipate, especially with the fact that we have immigration coming.
Oh yeah.
Like we have hundreds of thousands of people coming into GTA alone every single year. When they start opening up the borders, we have a shortage now. What do you think is going to happen when they start to open the borders up again?
Yeah, I remember I seen someone post like, where are they going to live?
So
they're like, we want to build 1.5 million by 2024. Like
right.
Somebody wrote on social media, like, where are they going to live?
And then you got to look at it this way: it's supply and demand. It's just basic economics. I mean, if we have more demand coming in, we already have a lot of demand right now and very minimal supply. If we're going to have even more demand come in, and they're trying to catch up, the government's trying everything they can in order to bring more inventory to our market, but they just can't catch up. If we have so much demand and not enough supply, prices go up. So yes, right now, I would highly recommend get in now. This is my biggest focus to clients. I'm telling them, hey, if you're looking to do something, do it now. Prices are up, yes, but this is the best time. Right now is the best time. Yeah.
And the other thing about it is like, depending on what you're buying for,
right?
If someone's buying a primary residence,
right?
Who cares what the prices go?
It's
your house.
It's
like
time.
Your house. If your house goes up, like a lot of people's house has gone up 500,000, 800,000.
Right?
Are you really any richer? Unless you're selling that house and you're going to take that money, you're going to run away.
Right? Or refi if you're taking.
But what are you doing? If you're not doing something, you're just holding on to money. It's not going anywhere.
And that's
so there's always a time to buy.
Right?
It's always good. The other thing is, what's your purpose?
Right?
If someone's buying for cash flow, right? Or you're going. Remember, real estate's an asset. It's a declining. Your mortgage declines over years.
Right.
So if you have a 10, 15-year view, who cares what the price does,
it's
right?
It's
you know, like Jeff Bezos was talking about his company, and he was saying, don't get emotional when the stock prices go up and down.
Right.
So if the stock price goes up by $100, do you feel $100 richer?
Yeah.
If it goes down, do you feel $100 poorer?
Right.
Forget that emotion.
Right.
And if we take that away from real estate, you'll see how great of an asset it is. Like, what do they say? Most millionaires, what is it?
In
7,
real estate.
8, 9, 10 millionaires are made out of real estate.
So true. And based on what you're saying, like that's the best strategy. Buy and hold. The longer it's not about the time. It's not about timing the market. It's about the time in the market.
Exactly.
Hold. I have a situation, even just thinking of a client that bought during the worst time, actually, in 2017, when the market actually started to. It wasn't the worst, but it was one of the worst times when the market dipped, and they bought at the peak of the market, and then it dipped. They had trouble closing on the property, the whole nine. It was a townhouse, bought in the mid fives around the time. It was tough, very, very difficult situation to be in. We're talking now about their property, same place, just living is now worth like 1.15.
That's crazy.
And when we looked at it back in 2017, it was the worst. Now she's in a great situation. So I mean, it's time in the market, not timing the market.
The other thing is to note too is right now, because there's been a lot of values increases around, it's time to partner with people too.
Joint ventures are
because I know it's difficult to get in as an individual,
right?
But what you can do with a team is much stronger, and don't worry about that. Because if you see, like for example, if prices stay going up the way they go up, right? If I split 250 with you, I'm not gonna be upset, right? Dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's do it. I'll go for that. Let's go. So real estate is one of those dynamic things that you can do with multiple people. You could do by yourself.
Right.
You could do with your parents, your aunts, your uncles, your friends. But a lot of people are afraid to partner because they're scared they're gonna get burned. But like, you gotta get in. Yeah. Like, don't be scared to dip your foot in the water, right?
And just be smart. Of course, you gotta make sure that person's on the same page as you. You have that conversation.
Yes.
I would even say, like, even having contracts. Really,
for sure. Everything has to be legally drawn up.
Just to make sure that's clear. Any more questions for us?
One more.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you recommend when your home is mortgage free? HELOC or home equity loan?
Oh, this is a good
one. That's a great question.
Go ahead, brother.
Okay, so it depends on, are you going to be using the money now? And to be honest with you, rates are going up, so it might be a good opportunity to lock in the rate. If you're mortgage free, we do a mix. So some banks offer half line of credit, half mortgage. So you get the best of both worlds.
Right.
And that's what I would do. But I think if I was mortgage free, I would definitely tap into that money. Because think about it. That's what I say to clients. If you take out the money, right? Let's just say you keep it for a year. You take out $300,000. You keep it for a year. Let's just say you don't use it. It may cost you $9,000, 3% interest,
Right.
$9,000, right? But if you find something to do something and you have the money there to do it,
Ready to go.
will you be upset of that $9,000? Probably not. So why not take out the money and in the worst case, a year from now, put it back down.
Right.
It's not the end of the world.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Goodbye.
At least the opportunity to buy, because what stops a lot of people is not having access to the capital at that moment. A lot of people, if the money's there, they're going to spend
They're ready
it.
to go.
Because a lot of times when I refinance clients, every day they're calling me. They want to buy something. They want to do something. Because you know what? They're going on their bank and they're like, oh, shoot, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I need to get, this has to get out of this account. So they always want to do something, which is good and bad. Because obviously you don't want people to make irrational decisions.
Right.
But when you have capital, you're more likely to deploy it.
Right.
When it's in your house and it's sitting there and it's not, like, you know, making any cash flow,
Right.
you're never going to do something. Because then you have to call me. It takes us 3 to 4 weeks. And then finally when you call back to Tristan's like, the house sold.
Right.
Or the pre-con
whatever it is,
sold out.
It's true.
Or the price went up by $100,000.
Right.
So
Fair enough. So let's go back to that same example. So Julie and her husband, TTC driver, we didn't even name him. Tom? Julie
husband,
and Tom.
no. Remember?
Julie and
he's
Tom?
No, he's husband.
Oh, husband.
Man, you
His
know-
name is husband.
Yeah, because that's what men, right? Husband? No, I'm just
Julie
playing.
and husband. That's fair enough. So we got Julie, we got husband. They're able to pull some money out. So let's say they have 100 and what was the
No,
number?
they have 300,000.
300 grand. So let's say they don't want to use all the 300,000. Let's say they want to buy something for, like, let's say $700,000.
So
So
you need 20%, like
20%,
140 down.
140 with their closing costs.
Yeah.
What's next? Like, what does that look
So
like? after
now
that?
they would have the money in their bank account.
Right.
And what we would do is prior to that, now you saying, okay, they're going to buy something around 700,000. So part of doing the refinance, I'm also qualifying to make sure they can also buy that rental property.
What is that situation? What is that like?
What I do is I structure the application, what it's going to be in the future. So I'll structure it with the new mortgage or the line of credit. And then I would send it, or I would, either talk to a bank or I'd look at the numbers myself and say, okay, these ratios work. And I'll come back to you and then, like, they have to find a duplex that brings in $3,500 a month. And that's how it can work. In rental income, that's how this is going to work.
Okay.
Or whatever the metrics are. So I'll give them that information. Also call you. You'll get that information. They'll have the money, or the money's in processing coming.
Right.
And then you'll start looking for a home. And when they find a home, they'll have enough money, as you know, to put a really solid deposit.
Right.
Because obviously that's another issue.
Yeah.
People don't have the money
Ready to
put
go.
the deposit on the house.
Yes, and it's a problem.
And that's a problem. Coming up with that in 24 hours.
It is.
And if it's in your bank account,
Ready to go. You can sign the check, bank draft, ready to rock. It's true.
yeah.
So okay, so you mentioned they would have to make, for example, $3,500 a month on their rental and they would need a duplex in that situation. What if it's the reason why I'm bringing this up, because you have investors that focus on cash flow, having a property that's positive cash flow. That's a big thing. What if it's a situation where it's not positive cash flow? What if it's a property that is maybe costing you $100 or let's say $200 a month?
The key is, what is the definition of cash flow? Because this is what is very, very controversial, right?
Right.
Because cash flow in most sense is like, what is the money that I take at the end of the month?
Right.
So that is free cash flow. That's
Right.
what is after all expenses come on.
Right.
Real cash flow is what you get after you just paid interest in your expenses.
Right.
Because principal reduction, which is what a mortgage is part interest, part principal. Principal reduction is part of cash flow, actually, because you're paying down your debt, which maybe in the future, like you say, we could refinance that property again, or you could sell it and it creates more equity. So a lot of the times the calculations that we do, what cash flow is, most people are cash flowing. It's just they're not getting no money in their back pocket.
Right.
But in most real estate, it's not to get money in your back pocket. It's to feed that future income and that future situation that you're going for. So now, if you need a rental property that's going to put money in your back pocket, then you may have to take a little bit more risk,
Right.
or buy something that's further from, if you're not in the GTA.
Right now, way out.
Windsor, way out, wherever you got to go.
Yeah.
Or you have a strategy that I'm going for asset appreciation. And that's another key about investing in real estate. So you get asset appreciation, you get debt reduction, and then
So
you
you're
get tax
you're
write-off.
saying a few things here. I just want to make sure it doesn't go over anybody's head.
It's gonna
Asset
go.
appreciation. Explain that so that we can make
Asset appreciation is when the value of your home goes up.
Right.
So you may say,
This
I'm going
price
to
is
buy
worth- for $700,000. You buy a property.
because I think in 5 years it's going to be worth $1 million.
Right.
So that's why you bought the property. You may not cash flow, like you say, you may lose money every month, but you're like, I could lose money because I know in 3 years when the Porsche comes to Durham,
Right.
that the value is going to go crazy. So that's why I'm going to do it,
Got
right?
you. So that's the strategy.
That's the strategy. One strategy.
Right.
Another strategy is like I need $1,000 every month to supplement my daycare costs.
Right. Which we know about. Which we're going to
know
know about. We will know
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
Yes,
I don't know about that yet.
No.
So I'm looking for $1,000 to supplement my daycare costs.
Right.
That's a need. So in that case, that customer, you'd be like, you have to find something that manages that that area, right?
Right. So there's different strategies, guys. Like I think people can get caught up in the whole the second option that you mentioned, which is $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Like people get caught up in, it has to be positive cash flow. I need to be making X amount of dollars a month. That's not always the case. Like sometimes you can be in a situation where it's maybe costing you money, but the long term, it could even be like 4 or 5 years. Like the benefits of the long term of appreciation, the fact that your tenant is still paying down your mortgage, you're making a lot more on this property in that 4 to 5 years than to try to like say, okay, I just want to make $100 a month, or you know what I mean, or $1,000 a month.
And that's the thing, and it's a lot of, I could name so many situations, even I've been in personally, that I didn't buy a rental property because I said it wasn't cash flowing, and now this property is worth much more in the future,
a lot more money.
So like, it's like, what are you buying it for?
Right.
If it's part asset appreciation, like I said,
right,
why not? Who cares if it doesn't cash flow? Because in the future you're going to sell it, right? And a lot of times, if you think about it, people buy pre-construction for asset appreciation.
Right.
No one buys pre-construction without asset appreciation because you're not getting no cash flow.
Right.
So why are you buying it?
Right.
Or you're buying it to live in it, and that's obviously a different conversation.
And with pre-construction, what that is, I think you guys, if you haven't seen the first webinar, I talk about pre-construction. So make sure you go back, go to my channel. You'll see the first webinar that I did last month. Please subscribe and also click on the link that you see. You'll see my first webinar where we talk about pre-construction and we talk about how to buy it and the whole process. But what that is of course buying a property before it's even built. You're buying it from the plans pretty much. That property is not built until 2, 3, 4 years from now. But during that time, you still own the paperwork, you still own it. So you're building equity, you're building appreciation throughout that time, which is a great business strategy, I would say.
And that's what it is, right? So you're buying pre-construction because of what is going to be in that area. And that's another real estate strategy, right? So that's why the cash flow things is very tricky. And I really want people to pay attention to that. Yeah. Especially as we're going into the future, like rates could be going up. So properties may not cash flow. Right. Or
it may cost you a couple $100.
Yeah.
But it's so funny though. It may cost you, let's say $200. How many of you that are listening right now spent $200 in one weekend or one night just going out for dinner? I took wifey out the other day, and the bill came up to $200. I was like, buddy, maybe we should try to sneak up the back. But no, let's see if you're watching. We paid, we're good. But yeah, no, $200 can happen just like that in one night. Why not have an asset costing you $200 a month? But I mean, look at the back end. It's going to be appreciating the value, and your tenant's going to be paying down that mortgage. Yeah. So you're just building equity.
Or you're just helping paying down that mortgage a little bit. It's like a savings plan.
Right. That's exactly.
It's definitely a savings plan.
Awesome. So let's say they bought. So what is that? We talked about, Julie and husband. They're now looking at, let's say for example, pre-construction condo for $700,000 that they're looking to buy. What's next? Like you're now.
So there's a couple of things that we did in between.
Yeah.
Most people, what I would do is I would reset their amortization back to 30 years. Okay. And why I would do that is usually the payments are matching what they're used to be paying.
What would it be at right now?
In Julie's case, it could be 20 years, 25 years if she bought for 5 years. Right. Sometimes maybe Julie and her husband were smart and they were putting money down. They increased their payment. They were doing my pay fix, take variable strategy.
Your strategy that you coined.
And they're paying down a little bit more.
Right.
And now their balance their amortization was a little bit less. So now they're able to actually tap into that equity a bit more. So I extend the payment out. And the reason is, even if they can afford to pay more, they can pay more all they want. Right. I extend it up for my ratios to get approved for the bank. Gotcha. So that's very important. So a lot of the times people are like, Jason, I want to pay $2,000 and maybe I make the payment $1,500. Right. And they're like, and I do that because of what the next step is. Right. And they may not know what their next step is. Because usually what happens, Julie and husband will buy the first house, they'll love it. And then what will happen? I want to buy another one.
Right.
So then the good thing is we have that line of credit,
Ready to go.
right? And then maybe we slide them into a pre-con.
Got you. Fair enough. Awesome. Any other questions at all? Do you have any more questions in there?
Regarding a down payment. I've always thought that the 20% that's required as a down payment on a second property needed to be free and clear. Are you saying that 20% can come from the refinancing of your first property?
Yes. That's the beauty.
Yes.
So it's so funny. Let me just, I know you're going to go into this because this is what you do. But let me just kind of touch on that, guys. When you're buying your first home, let's say you bought your home and you own it for a few years. And again, Julie and husband, they now own it and they have X amount of dollars in equity. Once you buy that first home, you can now continue to buy homes without putting a dime out of your pocket. You're literally just refinancing, taking that refi, using that as a down payment to buy the property.
Tax-free.
Tax-free is the biggest part of it. Tax-free dollars. Of course, it's a loan, so you still got to pay it back. But I'm just curious, what would a payment look like for something like that? Let's say on like $150,000.
$150,000 will cost you about like $600-$700 right now.
$600-$700 a month.
Yeah.
More that somebody would have to factor in.
Yeah.
Got you. So you have to keep that in mind. But you're taking that money out.
This is why I talk about if they re-amortize to 30 years, may be the same payment.
You might be able to work it out.
Because especially a lot of people bought with like 5% down. So someone bought a $600,000 town, put 5% down. Right. That's only $30,000. They're on a 25-year amortization. 5 years later, they're on 20 years left. If I went and refinanced them to like $800,000, their mortgage payment wouldn't change that much because now they're going to 30 years.
Got you. They're
stretched out, right? Yeah. So and we're gonna say that you are gonna pay down your mortgage a little slower, but the hope is that you take that money and then you go buy it into another investment that grows in equal value.
So you're buying. So you, as I said, you start with your current home. You make some money on your current home. You refinance. And you take that refi money and you go ahead and put a down payment on another property. You can now go ahead and in a few years take that same investment property that you bought, refinance that to go buy your other property. And I know so many people, one that's like even in the room right now, a couple that's in the room right now, and that's all they do. They've been just refinancing properties, and you blink and you can own all 10 properties just from that strategy without putting any of your money down outside of just that initial money that you put down for your current home. So it's a great strategy for one to use to really build your investment portfolio.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's perfect. And what I always say to people is that if you look at your life as a business, right? So if you're a business owner and you have underutilized capital or equity, right? What would you do as a business owner?
Well, geez, if
you're say for example, you sell Tristan Cluna's cups,
ready to reinvest? Yes,
right. You have extra cups, and you know you got these cups at a discount. And what are you going to do? You're just sitting on them.
No, we're going to sell them.
You're going to sell them.
Right? They're gone.
So I think if we look at our houses as that we have underutilized capital.
That's a good point.
What can we do with that?
It's a solid point, brother.
What can we do with that? And how can we manage it? Because listen, equity doesn't pay your tax bill.
No. So that's a great way. Any other questions at all?
Yeah. Can you obtain physical cash when you refinance a property, or is it always given to you in a credit product?
Well, it's at the end of the day, you're borrowing money, so it is credit. It's no matter what is credit. Physical cash, it's digital world right now. But you can go to the bank, refinance, go into your bank account and take out cash if you wanted to. But the bank, it's a credit product, so essentially it's debt. So it's always going to be a loan. The only way you can get cash, you have to sell the asset.
Right. Any others? That was good, man.
Oh, thanks.
We're good. Awesome. Do you have any? Yeah, so I mean, just want to remind you guys, please subscribe below. All the people that are in here, subscribe. Subscribe. We're going to be doing this. I'm going to try to do this once a month, really. So I'm going to have different topics. I think the next month is going to probably be on first-time buyers. We're not quite sure. We're going to walk through it. We're going to talk about it and see what would be beneficial or what would be ideal. You have any other questions for me?
I was going to say, do you want to drop any links?
Any links to no
specific?
No, we're good. Sorry, we have a full team behind the camera. We have a full team helping out, which is amazing.
That's a link.
Anything else that you want to talk about on this topic quickly before we wrap up?
All I want to say is that you guys could contact me.
Yeah, what's your
contact? Find me? JasonAllenJohn.com, and you could enter in the contact information, and I could hit you up, and we could talk about refinancing and all your needs.
And you have what about your social media?
Instagram, everything is Jason Allen John on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, and I'm on YouTube, but there's not that much videos. But I gotta be like Tristan one day.
Oh, give me a break.
But overall, I just want to say, I personally think now is the time you have to take a look at your current situation,
right,
and tap that equity. I know a lot of people are scared, and because it is their asset, and we're taught to pay down the debt.
Sure.
But we're in a time period right now where if you don't buy more assets, you're gonna feel left behind.
Right.
And that's all I would say. Because obviously these prices are going up, and they may not last. So at the end of the day, there might be times where you can go get deals. So
sure,
if you tap your equity at a high end, you don't have to sell. Now you have capital to use. So
100%.
we just want people to be liquid so they can do what they want to do.
Perfect. So guys, if you have any other questions, please subscribe, or you can contact me via, oh gosh, so many ways. You can do it through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all Tristan Clunas, just Tristan Clunas, all one word, of course. And of course, I think we're going to put a link on for email as well. If we can throw that in there, that'd be great. Again, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. Email, it could be sold@tristanclunas.com. Ask me anything that you like. If you want to get on the email list, please let me know as well. I can also add you to the list because we put out so much content via email as well. So I hope this was helpful. I'm doing this because I really want to bring value. I really, really want to bring value to the people that I know, to the community, to everyone that's listening. I'm hoping that you got something from this. And remember, if you're clueless, ask Clueless. Have a great day.
I love that.
Thanks, Phil.
No job, man. I like this.